a year later, I think I was just starting to recover a little bit from the whole trauma of obviously, losing Jamie, my baby, and looking after Hayden. And I just literally started running. That's just what happened. I just started running, and then I didn't really stop. And I guess for me, it was therapy. That's how it started. I kind of had this baby home for a year now, and we'd got used to having him, and we saw he was progressing well and everything, and life was just starting to get back to normal. And I think I used that time to kind of escape and to spend time with my other baby that I lost almost in the beginning.
Hi, my name is Michelle Lewis. 10 years ago, you'd have been lucky to see me run to the end of the road. These days, running is second nature to me. From marathons to park runs to putting my own running group through their paces. You'll often see me in suitably loud attire, getting ready to pound the pavements. And here's a secret, if I can do it, you can too. There's so many wonderful and inspiring stories in the world of running. And not just running, some of my favourite tales involve those who take to their wheelchairs, bikes or simply their own trusty feet in an attempt to get fitter, faster or just have some fun. In this podcast, I'm going to be in conversation with some of the most inspiring and fascinating of these people. Remember, it's your time, your speed, your way. The only person you need to keep up with is yourself. Welcome back to the Running Tales podcast and episode 22. This week I've been talking to Suzanne Smith. Suzanne and I connected through our mutual love of running on various Facebook groups and even met briefly after the Liverpool half marathon a few years ago. Over that time, I also got to learn about Suzanne's incredible running journey and how she has used the sport as a therapy since tragically losing her son Jamie. It's a story which is both moving and motivational. I started off by asking her to explain her running story.
I was a little bit sporty at school in the sense that I did team sports. I was never into running. I used to get made to do the 1,500 metres in any athletics inter-schools competitions, which I was rubbish at. But I think they just like to include everybody. And I hated it. It was far too far for me to run. Everybody else was doing short distance. So after that, it was team sports. And then as I got a bit older, it was more doing gym work. And I would sometimes use the treadmill. This is kind of in my 20s. I'd use the treadmill to just do a warm up and do my cardio section of my gym routine. And then occasionally I would go, I think I'll try and do 5K. So that's kind of how it started in that respect, but that was just gym warm up, as I say, or gym cardio. And then I occasionally would go out now and again, just a little, I think I'll do a bit of running. So it'd be like, twice a week for a few weeks, and then it would all stop again. And then it started actually properly running in my I just turned 40. I had a baby boy who was 4 months prem, Hayden, and he's he's actually 9 years old next week. And he was due, as I say, in November. So he was 4 months prem. He'll be nine years old next week. So it's 9 years ago that he was born, and he was actually a twin. His twin was born first, and sadly he didn't survive. He was actually stillborn. This is quite hard to talk about. And I didn't really grieve, I guess, because you got thrown from that straight into delivering a second baby, and then, straight into intensive care. And then it was a 24/7 nightmare for months on end before he came out of hospital. And it was literally round the clock watching this emotional roller coaster, going through this emotional roller coaster of having a baby in neonatal, which is, as anybody who's had a premature or poorly baby will know, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back all the time. It goes, one day you have a good day, the next day there's an infection, the next day the heart rate's dropping, the next day, they're feeding better. It just goes from one thing to another. So moving swiftly on, we got him home in the November, and then a year later, I think I was just starting to recover a little bit from the whole trauma of obviously, losing Jamie, my baby, and looking after Hayden. And I just literally started running. That's just what happened. I just started running, and then I didn't really stop. And I guess for me, it was therapy. That's how it started. I kind of had this baby home for a year now, and we got used to having him, and we saw he was progressing well and everything, and life was just starting to get back to normal. And I think I used that time to kind of escape and to spend time with my other baby that I lost almost in the beginning.
Yeah.
Where I live is in the Lake District. I live in a beautiful part of the country, and I was surrounded by, I live somewhere, a different area now, but we've always overlooked Blencathra, which is one of the Northern Fells. And so every route that I did always took me past Blencathra, and I almost felt like Blencathra was a bit of a guardian angel in a way, always looking down at me. And those early runs were quite tricky. I had probably a year, 18 months, and even in now occasionally it catches me out where I'd be in the middle of a run and all of a sudden I'd get hit by the grief again. And I'd literally have to stop in my tracks and just stop and be doubled over. I just couldn't go on for a while. I had to collect my thoughts and then carry on. And but I think time moves on, and you become more focused, and you start to meet people, and then you start doing events, and it kind of becomes part of your life, doesn't it? As you well know.
I'm with you there. You just woke up one morning and went, I'm getting my trainers on, went out for long runs. That was your time, with your thoughts. When did you start picking up, joining the running groups on Facebook?
Joined a club probably about 6 months or so, maybe a year. I can't remember exactly when I joined a running club. I've since moved to a different running club because I'm geographically closer to the other running club now, which is Eden Runners. Hello, Eden Runners. Based in Penrith, and they're just fantastic. And we joined them in, I think it was May 2016. I joined that running club. But going back to what you were saying about groups, I did join a running group quite early on Facebook because I knew nothing. I know people say, oh, you just put one in front of the other, but as you kind of become, I'm a little bit all or nothing as a person.
Yeah.
So I'm either doing something and I'm doing it thoroughly, or I'm just not bothering with it at all. So I wanted to know more about it. I wanted to get better. And actually, what I found with running was it really helped with my self-esteem and my self-worth and my self-confidence, because I've always had very low self-worth. And I think what happened with me when I lost Jamie was I started to put myself first a little bit more, because I thought, well, I deserve something here. I've gone through this awful trauma, and I kind of need to look after myself a little bit. So, and I stopped worrying so much about, other people and everything else in terms of using them to value myself. I started to find my own self-worth. I didn't need so much other people to do it. And running was a great outlet for that for me, because I picked it up quite quickly. I started off, probably, I don't know, on an average run, I would be probably 4 minutes a mile slower than I am now, at least, if not more. So I didn't, because everybody thinks I'm a fairly decent-ish runner, and I didn't start like that. I've come through the process like everybody else, but I wanted to. I wanted to get better. I was driven to get better, and I guess part of that was the grief. Part of it was I was getting driven by the inner strength that I was starting to develop. When you go through any trauma, you find out how strong you really are.
Did you have support groups at the time, or was you totally on your own, and then it was running that helped you find yourself again? Or did someone...
I was totally on my own. My my ex-husband obviously was going through the same trauma, but we handled it very, very differently. And, you know, we've since, you know, split up when I divorced, and I'm with now a running friend that I met through a running group. So. But it was, I felt very, very alone. And actually, I still feel very alone in the sense of what my experience was. You know, other people have gone through a similar process, but your grief is personal. Nobody can really get to grips with your grief because it's unique and everybody handles things differently.
Yeah.
So yeah, the running was definitely me. I did have groups, but I didn't kind of go through everything, the process with groups. It was more the running itself was helping me as I mean, I've always said running is therapy, you know, as well as having goals and this, that and the other. It is actually therapy. I mean, it's so many things, isn't it, to so many people, but you find, I think you've probably spoken to hundreds of people who running has really helped mentally as well as physically.
Do you find that if you haven't run, that your thoughts about Jamie, it tends, you know, like you're saying, that the birthday is coming up, are you finding that you're going out running more when it comes to big events like birthdays, Christmas?
And it does really help. I mean, you don't even sometimes realize what day of the month it is or anything, and you suddenly start feeling different, and then you realize it's probably, you realize what date it is or what month it is, and it starts to come up, and then you realize actually that's probably why I'm feeling like this. But yeah, the running, it becomes my time to really give Jamie that time, because as a mum of 2 other boys, he doesn't get the time, and he's still my baby, you know, I'm still his mum. He's not here with me, but I'll always be his mum, and he'll always be with me, and he is my, I guess he's my running buddy in a way. He's always with me.
Running angel,
And I did Lakeland 50. When was I last do Lakeland 50? 2018. And it happened to be on the anniversary / Hayden's birthday. And I took some of the petals up with me. And as I was going up one of the fells, I checked my watch, and at the time that he was born, I stopped and took some petals, because I'd had flowers done for his grave, but a florist very kindly did a separate little sachet of some of the petals for me so that I could take them with me up on Lakeland 50. So I stopped for a moment in the middle of Lakeland 50. Everyone must have wondered what on earth I was doing, and just scattered these petals and just had a moment to reflect. And that Lakeland 50 event is always, that will always be very special to me and mean a lot to me.
How are you going to cope this year, in a sense that there is no races, you've got nothing like that? Will you go for a run yourself on the day of the...
I'll go for a run myself. I mean, he's got a grave, so I always go to his grave, and I take the other boys with me, and obviously Hayden is his twin, and he usually wants to put the flowers down and that kind of thing. So it's a bit of a, you know, we go together, and I will do a run, and it will be Jamie's run.
So with not just running itself, I've noticed with you as well, and what I found quite inspirational is, okay, it's been 9 years, and you say it's hard to talk about, but you have been very supportive and very open on your posts in the running groups about your grief and what you've gone through. And I have seen on the comments other runners that have been through the same. Do you get that support, you know, when you see all those comments that come through from all those other runners that can, you know, have experienced what you have? How do you feel?
I think it's important to be able to talk about it. I mean, I don't, on a day-to-day basis, I don't talk about it, but I think it's important for people to identify, and they may not even want to say themselves what they've been through, but sometimes you want to know, you don't want people to have experienced it, obviously, but you want to know if somebody has. And there's somebody out there with a connection. I mean, there are several runners that we both know who've been in several running groups that we've both been part of, male actually, who've been through, you know, similar or lost children. And it's I think a lot of people go through this kind of trauma, or any kind of trauma really, and as we were saying before, running really helps. And when I see the comments, as much as I don't want them to have felt what I've felt and to experience what I've felt, what I hope is that people can connect and know that they're not on their own, because grief is a very, very lonely thing.
Yeah.
And I did actually go to CBT at one point a few years ago for various different things, and she did want to talk about the grief, and actually I said, I don't want to get counselled through it, I don't want to let go of it. And she kind of looked at me, and I said, it's all I've got of him, all I've got of Jamie is my grief.
Yeah.
And I think if people can handle it in other ways, I mean, it's, you know, everyone handles it different, but I take it and I run with it. So that's my outlet, really. And I can run with, and I can be with him on my own. There's nobody else around, and we can just be, you know, together as I'm running in the air, you know, in the surroundings where he was, you know, being nurtured.
So with you, moving on a little bit, and I suppose this is Jamie in some ways being your angel, following you, you have picked up speed. And when we do see your races, some of them, you do actually win them. What?
I haven't won many.
Yeah, but still, it's like, wow, you know, and you've built a gym now in your house, you know, you've got, you know, you're very focused.
Yeah, credit to Dennis that we built the gym.
Yeah, you're getting yourself very fit and very strong. So has running now become your life, you know, because you do focus a lot on your body and you see the results on the races?
Yeah, it's, to be honest, I guess with social media, it comes across differently. I mean, I run 5 days a week, and some of those runs will be 45 minutes to an hour. So it's not taking up as much a chunk of my life as it may come across. You know, people see Strava, and if you haven't been on Strava, for example, for a few days, you see lots of activities come up. So it looks like somebody might have done a lot, but actually, you know, it's just been over a period of days. And the strength work, I mean, it's really important for me. I mean, I'm no spring chicken. I'm 50 next year, so it's thank you. So I have to look after my joints and my, you know, my bone density, and make sure that, I mean, I'm quite tight. I think because I do quite a lot of speed work and stuff, I am quite tight. I really ought to do yoga, but I need somebody to tell me what to do. I do quite, I mean, I think it's really important. You need to stretch, and you need to get the roller, and you need, you know, I have to sit on a ball and all the rest of it. I do that several times a week, like a concentrated session, not just a few minutes at the end of a run. And I do get sports massages, you know, every now and again. I just had my first one again last week after months and months of being off.
Wow, it must have felt like Christmas.
It was very, very painful, I can tell you.
So tell us about the types of races that you enter and distances.
Okay, so my favourite distance is long distance. I like to do the odd 10k. I really don't like 5k. It's just, it makes me feel sick, because I'm one of those where I have to be going at it. If I'm going to do it, I have to, you know, go for it. Unless I'm pacing at parkrun, that's my favourite thing, because I pace at parkrun. Obviously, we're not doing parkrun at the minute. I can't wait for parkrun to come back so I can get back to pacing. I just love it. Absolutely love it. Get my blue bib on and off I go. Get my little, I feel like the Pied Piper. Got my little people following me. But I just love that. I love the camaraderie of parkrun. So that's my 5k. Parkrun is my amazing experience of 5k. I just love it. It's an amazing thing. I do race 5k occasionally, and that's just a set event that they have in Lancaster, and it's every 6 weeks when they're in race, you know, when we're racing again. Yeah. And I have to travel quite a long way to go and do it, and it's, you know, 5k.
Just for 5k.
But it's such a good setup. I really like the setup. I really like the race director, and I really like the camaraderie on the course. And you go in 2 waves. So the sub-20s go up at one time, and then half an hour later the rest of us go. Although my aim is to get into the first group, so I'm steadily edging my way towards it. And then that's all I do 5k wise. 10k, I don't mind 10k occasionally, but my favourite is marathon by far. I have done the occasional half marathon, and half marathon was the last race I did actually before lockdown, which was an interesting day because I don't know if you saw the story, but I was set to do Winslow half marathon, and I was all set up for Manchester Marathon to try and go for a PB. My training had been brilliant. I was nailing everything I needed to nail. I felt quite confident. Got up to do Winslow half marathon, which was my test. It was my big test, and I wanted to get a PB. So I got up at 6 because obviously we had a bit of a journey to get there. Got in the shower, got out the shower, looked at my phone, text, cancelled.
Oh no!
And you know when you're all geared up for something,
Yes,
I was like,
yes.
no, you can't do this to me. And it was because of lockdown, but lockdown hadn't come in yet, but because of the COVID spread, it was kind of the last weekend that people kind of really were racing. Well, unbeknownst to me, Carlisle half marathon, which is very close to me, had changed when I entered Winslow. They changed from October to March, which is why I'd entered Winslow, because I wanted a March half marathon.
Yes.
So on the day, I quickly went on their Facebook page. They were still running and they had entries on the day. I picked my number up at 20 to 9 and the race started at 9 o'clock.
You was racing no matter what that day.
Oh my God, I tell you. And then I was like, oh, it's windy. And when Dennis was like, pull yourself together. So I went and flipped and won it. I was like, no way. You know, the little paper timing chip thing that it's around your trainers. I still got that on my trainer because I thought I'm so proud of that, because I could have been a complete meltdown, and I just kind of focused myself and got off there, and yeah, it was a good day. Got my PB, and then that was the end of racing.
So what did you win? What did you win?
I won a big trophy. It's really heavy. And it was really good because a guy from my running club won the men's race as well. So that was really quite a special moment actually. And Dennis hadn't been training so much, so he was watching. So it's very rare that he's at the finish line before I am, and he wasn't racing, so he was there to see me come in, and that was really special actually. And he'd been looking at his watch, because he knew what kind of time I should have been doing, and no women had come in, and all my teammates who had been doing the 10k, because that started at the same time, they were going, when should you think she's going to come in now? And he was like, she should be in any minute. And of course, lo and behold, and my profile actually is me coming into the finishing straight. I've got a massive smile on my face. I was just like, I can't believe this.
Wow. So what was your time? What was your time?
1:32:12.
Is that your fastest for a half?
That's my fastest half, yeah. I was about a minute and a half off. I knocked about a minute and a half off, yeah. So I was really chuffed to bits.
Do you think it was the adrenaline of suddenly changing half marathons, or the fact that, oh my God, we're going into lockdown, this could be my last race?
I don't know. I think sometimes you just have those days when all the stars are aligned and it all just kind of goes well. I mean, I was looking at my pace and I was thinking, but I feel comfortable, and I didn't know until I got to mile 9 actually that I was leading the race, because the 10k set off from the same point at the same time. There were ladies in front of me, but obviously they must have all been doing the 10k and they split off at some point, but by that stage you've spread out. So I didn't know till mile 9, but I mean 4 miles is a long flipping way to go when you've suddenly got the responsibility of being told you're first lady. I'm like, oh God, I've still got 4 miles to do at this pace. So I held on, and it was really quite a special moment. But my favourite distance is marathon. Definitely.
So how many have you done? How many marathons?
I don't know. I think including ultras, I've done 28, 29. I'm not really kind of a statistician in that way. I am in terms of my own numbers and how I've done and that kind of thing. But in terms of numbers and medals, and that isn't as important to me as my journey and my progress. That's kind of more important. Some of my marathons have been for me, other marathons I've run with other people, some marathons Dennis and I've just done together as a jolly, and they're all, they're all as special as each other. There isn't really actually the one I didn't like, the only marathon that I didn't really like that much was my first one, London.
Really? Why?
Yeah. I don't know. I think because I wasn't used to running in crowds. I live in Cumbria. I train on, I train on rural roads. I run mostly by myself. I mean, I do more club runs now than I used to, but at the time, I wasn't really a member of a club, so I kind of was doing it. I'd done all my training on my own, and I just found it a disappointment.
Is it because you couldn't run straight? You had to run around all the charity people and
general runners? The general. You see, part of the problem of that was my own doing, because I was new at running and I was new at marathon running. Obviously it was my first marathon, but I was new at running when I entered. When you enter, you have to put down an estimated time, and I had no idea what I could run a marathon at. Absolutely no idea.
What did you put? 3 hours?
5.5.
And what did you do?
I did 3:47.
Oh wow.
So I was in kind of the party section, and by the time I got to the day, I was targeting 4 hours. I knew that, and I also knew that a year earlier I put down 5 hours or 5.5 hours. So on the day, I just had to kind of get past people, and you see, that's the thing. If you take nothing else from this, take this. You can actually get past people and get the time you want. So you just have to keep calm and just keep pushing forward, and and not get het up by it, and you just waste energy otherwise. But yeah, that, and the bottles and the support was amazing. I have to say, the support is just, in London, there's nothing like it. It is absolutely incredible. And also I was having a difficult time in my personal life as well. So I think the whole thing, and with London, you can't have people at the finish line. There's nobody at the finish line for you, because they're spectators quite a long way away. So your first marathon, and you've got all this emotion and all this, oh my goodness, I just did that, and oh my goodness, I just got the time that I wanted, and you're crying and you're looking around and there's nobody there, so you start hugging complete strangers, don't you?
They're your best friends.
And then you've literally got to somehow get your legs moving again, because I always feel like if you do a marathon and you're running at pace, I'm not talking about when you jolly it, because I've done quite a lot of jolly marathons, but when you're targeting a marathon and you've trained for it and you're going at pace, I always feel like when you cross over that finish line, it's like a plane landing and the engine's going to reverse thrust, and your body just starts to seize up. That's how I feel it. That's kind of how I feel. Your body starts to shut down almost. And if it's not, you haven't been going fast enough. Saying that, 2 of my favourite events I've ever done have been South Downs Way 50 and Lakeland 50, and I had such a blast doing those. And marathon is my favourite distance, but in terms of experience, ultra is something else.
So just for someone like myself that hasn't done an ultra, I'm told the training is a lot different. No one ever asks you your time after you've done an ultra.
I didn't train any differently. I think if you're doing 100 miler, that might be different, but I was doing 50 miles. Well, an ultra starts at 50k, which is 30 miles. So, I mean, you're 26.2, you're not having to do really much else in order to get to that 50k. So when you get a step up to say 50, I might have done a few extra of the 20-ish milers leading up to it, but that's pretty much it. Because with the ultras, a lot of the ultras are up here, most of the ultras up here, they're hilly, so you're not running the whole route. You can kind of get your breath back and you can fuel as you're going uphill, and that's kind of the secret to keeping going and getting your time. If you want to do it in a reasonable time, it's all about managing your body, making sure you eat the right things, making sure you hydrate in the right way, not necessarily doing this all the time, doing it the right way and the way that works for your body. So it's good to practice that kind of thing with an ultra. Things like getting in and out of an aid station, you know, get in, check in, grab, you know, get your water bottles refilled. If you want electrolyte, get that refilled. If you want to grab some food, a good thing to do that a lot of people do is take a little plastic bag with them. I don't fuel on marathons.
Pardon?
Nutrition, I eat low carb, high fat, so I'll have like quite a lot of fat in my breakfast. So when I say fat, it'd be like eggs with, you know, like scrambled eggs with cheese and maybe a bit of, you know, the crispy bacon strips, snack things. So I'll have something like that for my breakfast, maybe a bulletproof coffee which has fat in it, so that will last me for the whole of a marathon, no problem. I might grab water, but generally manage most of it without, unless it's, I know I wouldn't recommend any of this to anybody. This is tried and tested with me, I'm used to it. Obviously you have to do your own plans and work it out yourselves. I would certainly never say go, you know, all that distance without any liquid, but it's just me, it just works for me. I'm used to it, I'm used to training like that. If it was hot conditions, then that's different, then you have to account for that. But spring marathons generally, especially up north, are generally not hot, so usually manage to get away with it. Yeah, and I am listening to my body the whole time. If I feel that I need it, then obviously I will grab something at that point. Gels I just don't do. In terms of going to ultras, generally my go-to ultra food will be cheese and some cashew nuts or some Brazil nuts or something. That's generally what I'll have. I eat quite a lot of cheese. Later on in an ultra, I generally find it's fruit that I want some fruit. So usually, you know, you get the liquid as well, don't you, with the fruit? So you get some juice, and if you've got oranges and that kind of thing. So and grapes. So that's generally my go-to stuff. At the end, I don't know, just whatever's going.
I was going to say, how do you treat yourself afterwards? Do you have a glass of wine, gin, beer?
Not anymore. I haven't had a drink since beginning of last September.
Is there a reason?
Probably would have had. No, I stopped for 2 weeks and then never went back.
Oh wow! Okay, and you've noticed a difference in your running and your
body? I've noticed a difference in my outlook and in my sleep patterns and in my focus and in my attitude to training and everything really. It's only been a positive thing for me. I love my Peroni non-alcoholic beer, so I have to have one of those several nights a week. And to me it's an indulgence because I'm low carb, high fat. There's obviously a higher carb content in it, so even though it's not alcoholic, it is still a treat. So yeah, and it has to be really cold. But other than that, no, I stopped at the end of last summer when we'd been away for a couple of weeks, and then before that we'd had another holiday in Austria, like a walking holiday, which was lovely. You just get to the point through the summer where you kind of, you know, oh, it's sunny, let's have a glass of this, it's sunny, let's have a glass of that, we're sitting in the garden, we're going to a beer garden. It kind of gets, I think it gets ramped up a little bit over the summer. And I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to have a couple of weeks off, reset my button, and then go back to just, you know, weekend only for a while and see how that goes. Well, I just didn't miss it. So I just felt better without it. So for me, it hasn't been banned. I haven't banned it. I've not said I'm never going to have a drink again or anything like that. But for the time being, I'm quite happy as I am. So, and I'm more productive. Definitely more productive. But the thing is as well with training, I have a coach and I have some quite heavy training sessions to do, and if you're not feeling it and you're not feeling 100% and you're a bit tired, a bit lethargic, a bit dehydrated, as all the things that you'll get through drinking, you're not going to get the best out of that session. You know, you might manage to hit some of it, most of it even, but you're not going to get the best training effect. So while I'm kind of still chasing a target, which I am, even though we're not training at the minute, I'm still chasing a marathon PB and a marathon time. Until I've got that, then, you know, I'll still be doing this kind of more structured training.
So what race have you got that's not been cancelled yet? So to you, hopefully,
London.
Really? Oh, right.
London.
Okay.
What's going on with London?
Oh, that'll be cancelled. That'll be cancelled.
It's definitely going to be cancelled. I don't know what. I mean, we definitely think Boris wants to hang on to this for as long as possible. That's our interpretation of it, because he really doesn't want to let this go. He wants this big British parade going on, but it's definitely got to be cancelled. I mean, Manchester is the week after, and that's just been cancelled.
Yeah.
Everything. Do you know what, Michelle? I have completely lost track of what races I have now entered and when they are, because some got moved to next year.
Yeah.
I don't know what. I've still got Windermere Marathon. I think that's in November. Coniston 14, and there's another one that Dennis mentioned earlier that I've totally forgotten which one it is, and that's another one that we still haven't had final instructions for. But I don't think there's going to be any races this year, to be honest. I mean, I am due to do a 10k the beginning of August, and I don't know whether they'll get the full go ahead for that. And it's the way that they're doing it is they're starting it off in 10-minute waves all day Saturday and all day Sunday, and it's only a 10k and it's point to point. So in theory it should be quite a safe thing to do. So you're starting off in waves of 6 each 10 minutes, and they will put you into groups depending on your time, your predicted time. I still don't know whether that'll go ahead. It'd be nice if it does, to get just a little bit of racing back. But other than that, I don't know. What have you got booked?
I did have New York, but that was cancelled, and I was like, yay! Because my last race was the Oundle 20, the 20-mile run. And during that, I was fine. But after that, the next day, my whole leg from my hip down seized up. And
you've been injured, haven't you?
Yeah, piriformis syndrome.
Yeah.
And since then, I've got TFL, which is your pocket muscle.
No.
No. And that is the one that's given me the most grief. So I've had 5 sessions now of physio and still got to work on my strength. So for me, 2020 is a complete washout. So for me, my next race is the Peterborough Marathon,
which
April.
is April
next year.
I think Manchester's been put back to April. They moved London to the 4th of October and then moved Manchester to a week after. Yeah, which was totally the wrong way round for me. Manchester was coming before London, and I was going to target Manchester and jolly London with Dennis. So when they swapped them round, I was like, what am I going to do?
Well, they'll both be cancelled, both cancelled. So
yeah.
I can't see.
I was so looking forward to it as well, because although I didn't enjoy London when I did it as a solo, I was really looking forward to a nice touristy weekend in London with Dennis, and we'd booked in to go and see The Lion King at the theatre and all kinds of. So that's all been refunded. So hopefully next year. Yeah, fingers crossed. But in the meantime, I've set up a group, a 5k group. So it's called Virtual Sanity 5k, and I've been had a group of people logging runs every week in the absence of parkrun. So they're not all exactly 5k. They don't have to be 5k. They don't have to do them exactly 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning. But I am trying to encourage people to get out at least once a week for their weekly shortish run. And they get points, and every 3 weeks there's a target week, so they get points that week. They get PB points, and they're going to get. I've split them into groups depending on where they are time wise, and the winner of each group will get a trophy.
Oh wow! So what made you start doing this then? What made you start?
Because I know the power of parkrun, and I know how many people would be just completely lost without that weekly community. I just thought, well, let's just see if anybody's interested in doing something virtually. I mean, there's no entry fee, there's no medal, I'll be doing these trophies, but it's a little community thing, and there's not lots of noise going on, there's not lots of traffic on the page. We literally post once a week. I give a motivational. Actually, one of the girls on it from my running club, Sarah, she's brilliant. She does an RD speech every week. She's absolutely brilliant. She does a little video. So I say a little shout out to Sarah. So she does an absolutely brilliant thing every week. So it's just really nice. I mean, a lot of people have dropped out after the initial few weeks. which is fine because people have good intentions and stuff. But the ones who are there, they have dips and then they pick up again and they have dips. And it's I feel like it's really important for me to try and keep people motivated, because as I said to them on Saturday morning, you know, at the end of the day, parkrun's going to start up again and lots of people will have fallen by the wayside and you're all going to be chomping at the bit because you're all still fit.
Yeah,
So,
it's true.
I mean, me, I'm just chomping at the bit to get my pacing bib back on, but yeah, they can get going, and people are getting PBs. I mean, not necessarily 5k PBs, but PB on the course that they've chosen for this challenge.
Yeah.
So people are progressing, and that's really nice. And I made it. They were doing it every week, and then I decided at week 10. We're into week 18 now, and I decided at week 10 that, right, we're not going to do PBs and points every week. If you want to do PBs every week, that's up to you. But people are starting to get a little bit worried and anxious and, you know, feeling a lot of pressure. So we now do that every 3 weeks. So they can go out and do whatever other route they want in between and that kind of thing. So, you know, on the points weeks, they do their normal route and they do it, you know, at the time that they want to do it. If they want to push, they can push. So it's good.
So
it's
what's
nice.
No, it's brilliant. What is your local park run, so we know? Penrith. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Penrith.
And you know that a park run now do this not park run. Have you heard of that?
Yes,
have you been doing that as well yourself, or?
Generally not, because I generally do my own thing. I don't do 5k as a run very often, so it will be, I mean, I don't, in fact I never run 5k. It's always longer. The only time I ever run 5k is when I'm doing park run or pacing, so for me it doesn't fit in with what I'm doing, and but I just think it's a great idea. Park run is just amazing, isn't it?
You're talking to me here. I could do a whole podcast plus a whole month's worth just talking about park run and my adventures. So
what Sarah says on the brief every week, and she always says this, you know, she says, you know, social distance, everything else, keep yourself safe, because when park run does start up again, we want you to all be fit and well and come down to us, to French Fields, for the Penrith parkrun experience.
you know you're going to have huge tourism, but I don't know what your feeling is when parkrun comes back. Do you think it will reach record numbers straight away, or do you think anxiety levels will play a huge part in low numbers?
I think generally, I don't know what your experience is, but I think generally in the running community, people are not anxious about running with other runners. I mean, there are lots of reasons for that. Now, obviously, I'm not a scientist, but we're already people who know each other in the club. I'm not saying these are organised club runs, because they're not, but people who know each other through running club, i.e. runners who live in a similar area, have been meeting for social distance runs. And that's really nice that's happening again. And it's happening all over the country. It's not just, you know, me and my peers that are doing it. And I think the thing about running is you are naturally social distancing. You're not, you know, you're not running on top of somebody, because I mean, you catch the back of their foot and trip over or something.
No,
so
you don't want their glow on you.
Absolutely. And you're not face to face with people either. You know, one of you isn't running backwards, so, and you're outdoors. I don't know where it needs to be in order for parkrun to come back. I mean, obviously they need to get a lot of the risk factors reduced, because I mean, I don't know whether they can, because, you know, there's a lot of the stuff that happens indoors and that kind of thing. Obviously people don't want to be going indoors, but at the same time, there's no real need to go indoors, other than if I guess it's losing that kind of thing, isn't it?
Also,
but then you don't need to go in together, do you? So I mean, you don't do that in public now, do you?
One of our park runners on our page actually made a comment and saying that they didn't. This was a few weeks back, to be fair to him, and he made a very good point saying that he didn't want his child to handle the finish tokens. And then it was
Yeah.
like, yes, true. I honestly, unless, Bushy Park is the biggest one in the UK, and it's over 2,000 that attend there, so I don't think until events can have at least 2 to 2,500, parkrun would even consider.
Yeah.
But then looking at how fast the government is letting things go back to to the natural old ways quite quickly, I feel like we'll be all back running by the end of August at this rate.
Well, I think, isn't it mass gatherings from, is it October?
Yes. You could be doing London.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'd want to be doing London in October, to be honest. But you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, aren't you? It's a difficult decision by that stage. I mean, I guess you just have to take it day by day at the minute. I mean, staying motivated is one of the key things, and this is one of the reasons why I've set up the group I did. Because we never know when we're going back to it. Now, you can't indefinitely marathon train. It's not good for your body. And I haven't been marathon training, to be fair. My mileage isn't as high as it is certainly in the later stages of marathon training. My long runs are not long particularly. I'm into double figures just. So motivation is a big thing, isn't it? And a lot of people are saying to me, how can we be motivated if we've got nothing to train for? And just like, well, at the end of the day, we're fit, we're healthy, we're able-bodied, we can do this. Nobody's forcing us to do it. And we all need a bit of our own time. We all need a bit of headspace, especially in this crazy situation we're in at the moment. Why would you not do it? Why would you not go running? You might not want to do the pace that you were doing when you're doing your speed sessions or your intervals, or you might not want to do your 18 mile run. No one's telling you have to do that, but why do you want to give it up? It's the one thing that is yours, and it's the one thing that is keeping you. I mean, if you do get COVID, you've got a better chance of having a really good recovery because you're fit and healthy. It should be a motivator in itself, shouldn't it?
So one thing, we heard one of your dogs barking in the background. One of them is a puppy, or should I say, must be one. Dora must be one by now. But one thing I like about your posts is that it's not just you and Jamie that are out there running. You take your dogs too, and you take these wacky photos of your dogs with these funny faces, and they're just brilliant. They're spaniels, aren't they? So
Springer spaniels, yeah. I mean, they love the outdoors, and well, they're gun dogs by breed, so they're used to being jumping around in bracken, and that's kind of what they've been bred to do. Not my dogs, obviously, but they still jump around in bracken. They also like mud. They're really drawn to mud, my dogs. So it can be. I took them out in the forest last week, and it's a nice dry path, and they managed to find this really deep muddy puddle. I don't know where it came from because it hadn't been raining that day and it was dry everywhere, but no, they managed to find this muddy puddle. And I do take Cody out with me running. If I go off road, I generally take him out running with me. Dora's too little. She's only 9 months. Okay. So she can only do about 45 minutes at the minute, and that would be walking. I wouldn't take her for a 45-minute run. I would take her for a mile. That would probably be running. I would probably take her for a mile, and she could probably do 8 to 10 minutes for a mile, and then that would be enough for her because their joints are still, her bones are still growing, and you can impact on the joints. But yeah, Cody, he's a great running buddy. He's absolutely brilliant. He just goes, and he goes ahead. He keeps looking back, comes back for me, and it's nice because it doesn't. Does it affect your running? It might affect my running, actually. It might actually make me, go a little bit faster because I'm happy. I've got the adrenaline going with him being with me, and I'm happy because he's wagging his tail and he's happy. But I have him off lead if we go running, because I have taken him on the road on the lead, and I've had him on like a canicross lead occasionally where it's been attached to me. And the problem with dogs is they just go when they want to go. So all of a sudden I'll be running, and when he's running downhill, we're literally, just about 6-minute miles going downhill with him. And all of a sudden he will literally stop dead to have a wee. Well, I then have to hurdle over him because I'm attached to him. He stops, and I'm like,
So
yeah, it's better when we're off road.
do you do parkrun with Cody, or is it just when it's just you two?
No, because it's because of where it is at French Fields. There's no dogs allowed on it's kind of a playing fields really, with a kind of a gravel track around the outside. So there's no dogs allowed on there.
Oh, so just to wrap this up then, so what advice would you give anyone who is thinking about starting to run?
Put on a pair of trainers, lace up and go. There's no reason not to go. Just do what you can. Don't overcomplicate it. There's absolutely no need to overcomplicate it. Don't worry about times. Just increase the length of time that you're out there gradually. Start off with 10 minutes, start off with 15 minutes, however much you feel you can do. Try and run as much of it as you can. If you have to walk, fine. Don't worry about it, and just enjoy it. Join a club, go to parkrun when it's up again.
And then just going back to like what the main topic is with the grief and that, like you were saying, when you have runs and you do have your moments when you break down, do you believe like let that happen?
If you have to stop, just stop. Take the moment. Everybody deals with grief in a different way, as we've said several times now, and just breathe through it. Just breathe through it, because if you can't breathe, you can't run. So this is one of the reasons why I've been out running and I've had to stop, because sometimes the pain in the pit of my stomach is so bad. I'm literally bent over double with it, and you have to stop. But it's all part of the process, and actually if you allow yourself those moments, it's actually quite cathartic. You can actually come through those few moments. Just live through that moment, come through it, and quite often you feel you can breathe again properly, and just allow it to happen. Don't try and control grief. That's the most important thing. And if you can run or exercise, if not everybody likes running, I mean, weirdos, but
for those, we do have wheelchair users, Suzanne.
Well, there you go. Well, that's their version of running. That's great. Whatever way that you can use your body to kind of process emotion, and running's a great way to do that. And a lot of people do turn to a sport after they've gone through a period of grief. So just embrace it and just allow it to wash over you. Take a moment and then move forwards.
If that doesn't persuade you to get your trainers on, nothing will. Suzanne's love of running is inspiring, and it's clear that Jamie is there with her every step of the way. She's clocking up some pretty impressive times too, although I'm not sure I'd recommend running marathons without water or tripping over your dogs on training runs. I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast and look forward to seeing you again next time on the Running Tales podcast.